and welcome to this episode of the ISL Talk Show, which, as you may know, is a collaboration between ISL Qatar and ISL London. I'm Miriam. I'm a 2020 graduate from ISL London, and I'll be your host this evening. Today, we're going to discuss a topic that's become much more popular these days, and it's become much more global as well, which is known as well-being. Because as we all know, because of what's happening around in the world right now, being stuck at home because of lockdown and quarantine can have a really heavy toll on both physical and mental health. And many of us have had to adapt to a new life, if not all of us have had to adapt to a new life, which isn't very easy. So I know that teachers and staff from both ISL London and ISL Qatar have tried to assist and help their students in as many ways as possible to make that transition easy. This time that we're in, of course, is about learning to resume your connection with others, both family and friends, from going to seeing them every single day to almost never. Also about staying active by maybe sports, yoga, things like that, and maintaining and building your relationships with friends and family. So now that we've got the formal introductions out the way, I'm going to introduce our lovely panelists who are going to be taking part in today's episode. First, we have ISL London PE teacher, Mr. Elliot Harris, who I know your PE Challenger videos have gained a very large following amongst ISL staff and students. Let's also welcome ISL London Secondary Learning Support Teacher, Ms. Timia Virag. She's also a trained and qualified yoga teacher and nurse, leading activities such as virtual guided relaxation sessions at ISL London. And last but definitely not least, representing our sister school ISL Qatar is Ms. Gaida Erlano, the PhD teacher of learning, who also orchestrated the Let's Keep Moving ISL Qatar campaign with her team. So welcome everyone.
Hello.
Hi. How you going?
Hi.
Good to be here.
How's everyone doing during this time?
Very good. No one predicted this, and we're still standing here or sitting here.
Yeah. So I will start off with a more easygoing question for everyone regarding mainly how you've all helped students just tackle boredom and demotivation, which I think personally, ever since the 2020 examinations were canceled, I certainly experienced an increased level of both, including also laziness. So I know it's a problem that many students, both young and old, struggle with right now. So how do you, as teachers, motivate your children to stick with their daily physical routines and just to stay active generally, not just necessarily sports-wise, but just in their general life?
So I suppose what we did at ISL, we tried to keep the activities short and sharp so they were more engaging and fun, and daily activities as well. So I mean, at the end of the day, being active should be fun, it should be enjoyable.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're not going to want to do it. We developed challenges like the trick shot challenge, dance challenge, stack cup challenges. We did a K a day.
Here in London, ISL Qatar, because all the PE teachers here work both secondary and primary. In terms of primary, what we did was normally the kids have only got 2 sessions per week.
Mm-hmm.
So every week they basically had about probably 15 different types of activities they can do before, during, and after school. Because as you say, keeping to a routine these times and also being motivated, it's a bit hard if you just set them, okay, for today, do, mountain climbers. So what we did was we did like a fortnightly different activities and different challenges demonstrated by Mr. Monk, our head of school. Obviously us as PE teachers, and as we went through our lockdown, a lot of the kids actually had their own workout channels. So that was a part of their program as well too, which is really good. In terms of the going across, we also have got workout buddies where our sports leadership, grade 9 and grade 10s, actually had a schedule on a Tuesday and a Thursday where they take 9 PYP kids and they do a little routine with them, which is actually quite good, and they loved it. The big kids, we did the Around the World challenge, whereby as a class, we accumulate all the distances. And I think we got as far as Turkey in the last 2 weeks.
It's important to stay active even though you're at home all day. So Ms. Timia, I know that you're not necessarily a PE teacher, but I know that you've done things such as the yoga, relaxation sessions, things like that. So would you like to talk a bit more about that?
It's really interesting what I've heard from, the PE teacher's point of view, because as a learning support teacher, my role is mainly to go to different lessons and support students who've been struggling with their learnings. And I think what was the first real challenge for us as teachers, especially if it's a learning support point, is that students had like no connections, no motivation from the very beginning. And I think the most important approach was to show understanding. We teachers try to go all the extra miles to make sure that emotionally we be able to support students. And relaxation was something that I thought would be very helpful, because I like to teach something that comes from my own experience. So I'm not just preaching it, but I'm also practicing it.
I know you all mentioned about how it was all challenging in the beginning for students, about both physically and mentally. First of all, to stay motivated, and also to do like the sports challenges that you talked about. When, let's say, you may not be a sporty person, but you need to stay active, you need to stay healthy. I know for a fact I went through a struggle like that, as I have a knee problem, which I didn't know I had before. I'm not a very sporty person, and so when I started to become more active, started to experience that, and I need to kind of adapt and incorporate that into my life, as I know that you can't let these challenges just stop you from living the rest of your life. You have to adapt to them, even if you're not a sporty person, even if you weren't motivated at the beginning to do virtual learning, you adapt eventually. But I've noticed that a lot, not all of them, but a lot of activities and events you all just mentioned have been largely targeted towards the younger kids, as I know I can imagine, like the younger they are, the harder it is to keep them focused and engaged, especially since a lot of their face-to-face education was very hands-on. Adding on to that, what's the biggest difference and the most noticeable difference between teaching older children versus, let's say, EC and KG students on virtual school?
We tended just to do practical with the KG and EC students and grade ones, but with the older students, we tried to get them to understand a bit more about the why and the how. So we got them creating workout programs and like a wellbeing program for themselves. So they did some research onto the benefits of nutrition, sleep, screen time, all the things that we're experiencing in lockdown, particularly the screen time. And we found that there was a good response when the students reflected on the process. Whilst this has been something that's been really difficult, we've had to overcome it. I've actually started to change some of my habits into a more positive light, and that's something I can actually take and implement into everyday life once things start to get back to normal.
Ms. Skyda?
I guess one of the main differences between the EC and the KG is that in that sort of stage, their parents play a significant role in that. Because if you can think about it, also we're mindful of the fact that the parents are also working at home, and that transition and gaining that balance, because I saw this in some of the work that the MYP kids are doing, it's very hard to get a space for yourself.
Yeah.
If you've got dad over there having a conference, mom over there having another conference, where do you go? So I think that's one of the biggest differences there. I know our EC early years teacher, Miss Michelle, she's tried to do obviously live lessons, catch-up lessons. We didn't want the kids to be sitting in a laptop during PE. So we've tied that with our national strategy of Qatar, our health, our future. They had to think about moving their bodies, not just in PE, but pretty much whichever days. As we progressed through the hotter months of Doha, of Qatar, obviously that took away outside rather easily, because it's all of a sudden 50 degrees at 8:30 in the morning. So we gave them a bit more flexibility, obviously Ramadan as well too. Again, off screen, you need to make sure it's just, show us your time-lapse evidence, not necessarily sitting on a computer all day. So that was a big thing for us.
And I think from the student support point of view, we try to help parents on, if it wasn't on daily basis, but communication about how things are going, checking in and finding out like what has been the challenge, what has been an obstacle to learning online.
I know I personally, my younger brother, he's in grade 5. His education was very, very hands-on and creative. He'd always come back from school with a different project, with a different event, a different activity at school. He's very pleased with the way virtual school has been going, as I feel he's still able to express himself creatively. So from what I'm understanding, you as teachers, you guys have been very, very involved and engaged with your students through all the activities that you just mentioned. But did your involvement go as far as maybe playing games with them?
In terms of the challenges and things like that, we did virtual Olympics, where they're set to different, obviously, activities. And again, feedback is quite acknowledging the kids' work is quite important, particularly in the virtual world. So when they see something practical that's being updated all the time, being commented by the teacher, that works really, really well. This online learning, you see the kids who are very quiet in a face-to-face learning, you see them basically blossom. All of a sudden, they're doing everything.
And what we actually did when we changed our units around a little bit with the grade 10s, we actually got them to create an activity or a game or a sequence for the PYP students. So it took a few weeks for them to do that, but we had some amazing videos that came out, and we sent them out to some of the PYP classes. Yeah, as you were saying, Guida, just having a range of different things makes it, more available for interests, because we didn't just have one sort of challenge or one sort of movement or whatever it was. We kept it quite broad.
Yes, it was from my end. It was the guided relaxation session, and that was live online. And the difference is that I don't get to see the participants. However, we managed to check like the attendance list after each session, and we found out that the majority of the participants were teachers, and that is very telling. That while we've been serving the community, the first person who was in need for that extra support are the teachers. The devices you can't fully switch off, right? Even nowadays, you do anything, even if it's an exercise, the instructions come from the screen. So, my end is again encouraging participants, even students, just switch off your devices.
We've talked about a lot about how you've helped and assisted in maintaining physical health, whether it's by sports or just by encouraging students to just move around in their breaks, even not specifically to do with sports and physical education. But let's talk a bit more about their mental health now. I know that personally, it's been a challenge to keep myself sane. How did you support the emotional well-being of all learners using various tools, but mainly using mindfulness? That's the focus.
Yeah, so my passion is really about the emotional well-being of students and colleagues, and even further out, the whole community. And I think my intention is you first start off doing it yourself and showing that attitude, showing that positivity. And it's not about sugarcoating things and selling it as it's all good. If you hear someone's voice, you don't know how much is going on behind the screen. Parents have been, under tremendous pressure, and students are more likely to sort of absorb all that tension, and they don't have a channel, they don't have a space where they can just release it. And I think by discussing it with the teachers and having those regular meetings, the recognition is the most important part. And once we recognize it, once we are aware of what is happening without pushing it under the carpet, I think we can increase the likelihood of supporting students' emotional well-being.
If a teacher is very enthusiastic, very ready, very positive about online learning, you will see that in the kids. Those who aren't, you will see that in the kids as well too. Although it's not the same socially as in face to face, that was the best we can do in terms of that.
Yeah.
In terms of the mental well-being, it was really good.
I know that ISL, London, we had the yearbook challenge. We had challenges like that, which I know a lot of my friends' siblings would stay up and just draw and draw and draw, and they would just they'd take pictures, and I'd see them, I'd be like, wow, I never thought that things like this creative, this so involved in physical school would also continue after.
I think it's very important to recognize it's not about competing, this is about keeping everyone mentally, sane.
Yeah, I think you hit that right on the head there, because, we've used it. Both schools have used the word community, not grade 1 challenges, not grade 10 challenges.
Yeah.
It was let's move ISLQ, or let's move ISL London. It was really good in terms of that, getting everyone together as a community.
We had a community challenge. So I suppose you could relate it to a sports day, but it wasn't just sports. So there were countless little challenges, competitions, ranging from building the tallest tower of loo rolls to making paper cranes, cooking an omelette, doing as many burpees in a minute as you could, hugging someone in your family and telling you love them. So there were some really fantastic ideas that we as a community and the teachers came up with to get the students involved. And so the kids and some of the teachers actually really got into it. And it was just a good example of, community spirit and actually getting everyone together to do something.
Thank you for joining us today on this episode of ISL Talk Show and for giving us your input.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much.